In this video, I'm going to be talking about the predictions markets and the event contracts you can purchase within them. Now, just a quick preface, this is in no way an endorsement of the event contracts and the prediction markets within Robinhood. They are very speculative and just risky in nature. So if you don't know what you're doing, or there's just a lot of high risk regardless, even if you do know what you're doing, there's a good chance of you just losing your entire investment in a specific contract just because of how they work. It's like, trading options. If the option expires worthless, it's not worth anything. If there's low liquidity, it can be hard to get out of. In these, especially with these event contracts, the closer they get to maturity, they will just rapidly fluctuate in price. They can go from being worth almost the full just payout value to worthless, just depending on how something goes. So the prediction markets are something that Robinhood's really fairly recently just dove into. So they did it, their first kind of launch into it was with the 2024 US presidential election. They really launched these these event markets, and then they kind of had a bit of a pause while they are dealing with some regulatory stuff. There still are some regulatory challenges, but just with the environment right now, it does look like there's a decent chance that these are going to stay, and we're going to see a lot more of them. So in this video, I'm going to be diving in and showing some examples specifically with the March Madness tournament, the men's and women's college basketball tournaments. So if I go down on my account and then just click the prediction markets, you can see mostly right now what they have available to purchase event contracts for are the men's college basketball tournaments, as well as the women's. And then you can also just purchase event contracts for the final as well. They do have one currently in the economics category, the Fed fund rate in May, whether the Fed's going to drop the federal funds rate or if they're going to keep it the same. But this is just kind of something that Robinhood's been doing. They've been partnering with Kalshi, and then as well as a subsidiary of Interactive Brokers to offer a lot of these. This is still kind of in the early stages, but just probably based on the interest and how much people have been using them, there's a good chance we're going to see a lot more of these, whether it be sports tournaments, a lot of economics stuff. If you go on Kalshi or the Interactive Brokers site, you can see a lot of the different contracts they offer. So just as far as the example I'm going to dive into today, just looking at, so if I pull up the men's March Madness college basketball tournament, you can look at prior rounds that you had actually purchased contracts in, what the payouts were. Now, if I go and click on this Auburn-Florida game, this is going to be a game that's upcoming next week. How it works, these contracts, you can purchase them, and really they're all in, the payouts all denominated in $1. So you can purchase a Auburn contract for 38 cents, or you can see it actually, even though it says the price is 38 cents, due to just slight fluctuations, it'll actually be 39 cents. But I'll touch on that a bit more in a second as well. But you can purchase this for 39 cents. And what you would get if Auburn does win the game, you will get paid out $1. Same with Florida. So if you bought Florida contract for 62 cents, if Florida wins this game versus Auburn, you're going to get paid out $1. Your initial investment was 62 cents. Now, just with how this works, and one thing to note, every contract you do, so this is for the men's college basketball tournament, it's going to be different. So when you initially go to purchase event contracts for the men's college basketball tournament, it's going to prompt you and just really explain. It's going to give a bunch of disclosures. So if I go and try and trade a Fed funds rate in May contract, I actually go to buy it, it's going to go through a bunch of eligibility requirements. It's going to explain the rule book, disclosures. I might as well. I could just agree. I'm going to not agree because I don't actually intend on purchasing any of these contracts right now. But this is just really interesting because these do explain a lot of the nuances as far as how these contracts work, risks associated with them, how it works. And And this is important to read, and I would highly, if you do plan on purchasing any of these event contracts, I would definitely recommend reading them, just because it's going to detail a lot of nuances as far as, okay, what happens if the game gets canceled? What happens if a team forfeits? If there's a halt on the trading of the contract? There's a lot of details that you do need to be aware of if you're actually looking on purchasing these contracts, because this is real money, obviously, and you just want to be aware of, okay, what are the risks associated if I do purchase this contract? What could go wrong, aside from obviously like the team that you predict is going to win? If that team doesn't win, that's a whole separate risk. But it's just very interesting because you can look at each of these individual contracts. The sports ones are very popular right now just because of the March Madness tournament going on. So one of the things I wanted to touch in this video is just really how when you look at the top of your screen here, you can see the finalized game P&L. And when I go back to like the previous rounds, you can see I purchased some contracts on each of these games. It will go through my realized profit and loss for each of these games. If I go down here, you can see that was a bad game that I bought a bunch of contracts for Arkansas, and then Arkansas actually ended up losing. But just how this works, I mean, so that finalized game P&L, you can see here for the men's college basketball tournament, and then the women's college basketball tournament, I have $33.45. That's actually not how much money I made, and I'll just kind of go and explain this real quick in a sec. So when we go and hop into, like, if you were to purchase contracts for the Auburn and Florida game, it says you can purchase an Auburn contract for 39 cents. But when you go to purchase it, so I click yes, meaning I have Auburn selected, so I'm buying yes Auburn contract. So I would pay 39 cents for every contract, and then say it pays out, Auburn ends up winning, I will get $100. One thing to be aware of, though, is the fees associated with this. So the estimated cost of those commissions and fees actually comes out to, it's 2%. So 2% of that $100 worth of contracts, that's how much it's based on. So if I buy 100 contracts, it would be a $2 commission and fee. 1% of this goes to Kalshi, who is just the exchange for all of the March Madness contracts, and then 1% is going to be for Robinhood. Now this actual like contract commission and fee, this might vary per contract, so the Fed funds rate might have a different fee, and this could vary over time as Robinhood does end up just either changing their fee structure or whatever. But this is how it is right now on these March Madness contracts. It's a 2% commission and fee for this contract. So my actual cost in this will be slightly more. Now, this is really going to play into when we go and look at how much money I actually made from these contracts, looking through my statements. And this, I'll go through and kind of break out each of the statements that you're going to get and how to read them a bit more. But that really just does affect how much you actually end up earning. So right here, I would estimate that I made $161 on the men's college basketball. Then I would think I made $33.45 on the women's college basketball. But when we end up going through my statements, you're going to see that's actually not the case. So if I go over to menu tab, you're going to go to the profile icon on the bottom right of your screen, and then you're going to hit the 3 bars on the top left of your screen, which is going to bring you into this menu screen right here. And then when you scroll down, you go to reports and statements, and you're actually going to be able to get, if you go to the bottom of the section, you can either get a monthly statement for your futures and event contracts, or there's actually a daily statement that you'll be able to see every day. This is what I'm going to focus on in this next part of the video, just explaining how to read and break down those statements. All right, so just hopping over to a quick little spreadsheet I built, just so we can kind of see that information that we were looking at. And then I have a tab that I'm going to go over a few snips from my monthly and daily statements, just so you can kind of see how it actually looks in the information we're going to pull over when we're actually trying to just see how much money we made from this. So on the top left of the screen here, you can see my men's March Madness profit and the women's March Madness profit. for my combined realized profit of $195. That really, you would kind of assume that's how much you would make, but as we dive into it, you can see that's actually not the total amount of money I ended up netting from doing these contracts. So hopping over to a couple of snips from the statements, and I am just doing a few snips just so I don't show any information I don't necessarily want to share on the internet. But you can see, so it's going to be broken into a few different parts. So the very top section is going to be, and this is from my monthly statement. It looks very similar for the daily statement, but your monthly trade confirmations, this is just going through each of the trades you made. So you can see for this top one, this is a yes, Memphis. So I said, yes, I think Memphis is going to win. Don't believe they did. This was a bad idea. But I bought 200 contracts, yes, Memphis. Then you can actually see when the price dropped to 11 cents a contract, I doubled down, thought there was going to, it got cheaper. So I'm like, you know what, maybe they'll turn it around. So I bought more contracts. And then this third line, you're going to see for 400 contracts, this was the final settlement. So this is going to happen when the game ends. So one of the interesting things about this event contracts, you have two options. You can either buy the contract and hold it to the end, or you can buy the contract and say during just the game or whatever, or if this is a event contract for like the Fed funds rate, at any point in time, you can actually sell that contract and close out of it. Now, you will have to pay that 2% commissions and fees. Now, going down to this next part of the statement is your trade confirmation summary. And now this one actually provides a bit more detail. Notice it does aggregate some of your purchase and sell transactions. So you can see it combined all my 400 contracts I purchased for Memphis from the two separate buy orders. And then it also consolidated that final settlement into one line item. And this is just the second row right here on the trade confirmation summary. Now for the trade confirmation summary, when you're looking at this, this is actually going to break down how much you paid in commission and exchange fees. So you can see I paid $8 essentially on those 400 contracts I purchased. So that's 2% of 400. So that $8 in commissions. But on the final settlement, I didn't pay any. So that's something to note. You only pay the commissions and fees if you are buying or selling the contracts. But if you just hold them till the end, you have to pay that commissions and fees when you purchase the contract. But you don't have to pay any commission and fees when you just do that final closeout, the contract settles. So that's something you're going to be aware of when you're just trying to determine whether you should sell out or not. If there's a 99% chance that contract's going to settle a certain way, you might just be comfortable just waiting it out for that final, just through when the contract settles, so you don't have to pay that additional 2% fee to close out the contract early. But if you think there's some risk, you might just want to close out the contract early regardless and just make sure you guarantee your money here. But this is where you can see your total commissions and fees. It does break it down into the commission and exchange fees just based on what Robinhood and Kalshi gets, or if it, depending on the contract, it might be the Forecast EX that Interactive Brokers has. Now going down a bit more, you can see this. There are a couple of other sections in here. I believe it's a purchase and sale summary. I didn't include these here. It does have some interesting information, but nothing really I wanted to focus on in this video. The next section of these statements I'm going to focus on is the journal entries. Now, these journal entries actually don't line up with anything as far as not easily recognizable as far as stuff you purchased. When you're looking at these journal entries, really all it is the movement of cash from your regular brokerage account to these event contracts. So you can see the credit and debit. I mean, I purchased a lot. These right here, these 5 journal entries, these are the journal entries for the entire 2-week span that I really had traded any of these event contracts. Obviously, I traded a lot more than 5 event contracts. I did quite a lot, as I'll show you in a minute. Just in some of it, it was like 100, 150, maybe 200 contracts a game, depending on the game. Some I actually did a bit more. Obviously right here, I did like 400 on this one, 330 on another. The average was a bit lower. But really these journal entries, they don't directly correspond to any individual transaction. They combine a lot of the transactions, and then this credit and debit, this is just the cash flow as your contracts settle. So this final credit of $658.80, that's that final credit as all my event contracts had settled for the month and actually just got thrown back into my regular brokerage account to invest in whatever I wanted to. And then the next section I want to go over is just the account summary. This top account summary right here is the account summary for the entire month, just because it's a little easier to see. So you can see overall my entire commissions for the month were $96.46, the exact same amount for exchange fees. And then when we go, it shows NFA fees. We don't have any of those, but you can see my total commissions and fees were $192.92. And then my gross profit and loss, the amount that we actually thought I made, was $195.06. But when you actually factor out that total commissions and fees, I actually only made $2.14, which is kind of interesting and really just unfortunate. I mean, you thought you made a lot more money, but that's why I wanted to make this video, just to kind of clarify and showcase when you're trading these event contracts, don't look at those realized profit and loss numbers just on the top of the screen. Those aren't really, they're not going to always be indicative of actually how much money you made, just because of those commissions and exchange fees you're going to pay. So down at the bottom here, this is my account summary for just a single day, because I wanted to show what that looked like too. So you can see my beginning cash balance. This was just from contracts that were already in there but hadn't completely settled out. And then we have my commissions and exchange fees were just $6 for the day. Gross profit and loss was $38. So really, when I was trying to look at how much I made that day, I looked at my gross profit and loss, and then I subtracted the total commissions and fees to get $32. That was how much I actually made that day. This offset a bunch of losses from some prior days. And then you can see my ending cash balance at $658 and then 80 cents. This was actually the final amount that I ended up, you can see on that last credit. This was the last just event contract I actually purchased or sold for the month. So after this, that all got credited to my account. Now heading back to the summary page, this is where we can kind of see that same information. I just pulled in that credit and debit information. So if you actually go and it does depend whether you still have contracts outstanding at the end of the month, but because all of my contracts had settled at the end of the month, you can see my debits and credits. That actually matches my net P&L in this case. But then when we're looking at the contract fees, just to check, just because I was curious, I went and looked at how many total contracts I ended up trading. So I exported all my data for the month into a CSV. And then I saw I actually in total traded 9,646 contracts. Now this could be like if I purchased 200 contracts and then later I sold 200 contracts, I didn't let them fully settle. That counts for 400 contracts traded. And so when I look at my total fees, it's 2% of that number right here. And so that's why my transaction fees were pretty high. And so that $192.92, that's how much I paid in fees. And that's why I only actually ended up netting $2.14 at the end of this whole just event contract trading period. And so back on my statement, when we look at my monthly statement, that's how much cash activity I actually netted into my account. So this is just something you need to be aware of. If you're going to trade these event contracts, really use these prediction markets, you want to be making sure you're looking at your statements and actually being aware how much money you're actually making, because on the face, sometimes it can be a little misleading as far as whether you're making a lot more money than you actually are. But that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Let me know if there's anything else you just want to see or have questions on. One quick thing I did just want to make sure I did add at the end. This whole statement thing, when you're looking at it, it can vary depending on if you purchase contracts over a long period of time. So if I end up purchasing a contract and then it doesn't settle, or you don't sell it for another week, it can make your total commissions and fees, your actual P&L, that can make it a little odd to look at, just because the timing of the commissions and fees you pay versus when the contract actually settles, that can vary. So that's just something to be aware of for these March Madness contracts. Obviously, it's a really quick turnaround. So if you're buying the contracts the day of, the game is going to end that day. You can also just purchase these contracts in advance. So if you want to purchase event contracts based on who you predict will be in the final tournament game, or who you think is going to win the final game, you can do that. But because they are longer dated contracts, the actual settlement and just where all the commissions and fees are going to show up, that is going to vary a bit.